you think we will be able to outcompete the other sort of players in our region?
I think this is what people in this country regularly forget. We have an incredible educational system that supports thousands of students all around Bangladesh. We have a land that is very fertile. We have very good tariff rates right now with US compared to India and China. They're not the best, but they're still much better.
Why can't we manufacture solar panels in Bangladesh?
We don't have the supply chain. We don't have a lot of the things that are required, but also solar is a very technology intensive industry that requires a lot of investment in R&D, which Bangladesh is not at that level yet. What we're seeing in the market right now is China is outcompeting Europe and America. You don't want to compete against China in something like this.
Do you see any changes, probably in the last 20 years, of what the definition of industry is?
That is a very
Open-ended question.
very open-ended question, very deep question actually.
Hello everyone, welcome to a very special episode of Anwar Ispat presents How to Start a Startup. Today we're taking a step back from the usual startup playbook to look at the bigger picture, how Bangladesh's industries and startup can grow together. To explore this, we have a very special guest with us, Mr. 𝗧𝗪𝗏𝗍𝗂𝗏, the Deputy Manager of Anwar Group of Industries, the oldest conglomerate in Bangladesh. You could say Anwar Group is the backbone of Bangladesh, shaping sectors from textile to technology. Before we start, I just want to personally thank you and Anwar Ispat Group for supporting this and making this sort of knowledge accessible. So thank you very much.
I want to thank you guys for organizing such a wonderful podcast.
So Pat, let's start with your academic background.
Yeah.
You studied in Bangladesh, but then you moved to US, I think Boston. How was that experience like?
Yeah, so I studied all my life in Bangladesh and 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗃𝗍𝗂𝗏 Boston, and I studied in Northeastern. And you want me to elaborate a bit more? Sure. So when I entered college, the degrees that I took were marketing and then management. And, when I was studying, I think one thing that I always thought to myself is what is the next thing? And that's when I got into analytics. I studied business analytics. And I also did my MBA in Georgetown. I was one of the youngest MBA graduates there. And
You did your MBA in...
consumer analytics.
Okay, so could you tell our audience what that is?
Yeah, so consumer analytics is basically analyzing big data to understand if there are synergies in or trends that we, as a business, we can analyze. So one thing that I was personally very obsessed about is how do different decisions correlate to different results? And I think as someone who studied marketing, this is very applicable. And the viewers that are watching who are studying this is literally the next thing. When you can analyze particular actions, for example, in the market that correlate to performance, you invest in that more and more. And that's essentially what marketing is. And that's what the next phase of digital marketing or consumer analytics and everything else.
Yeah, so follow-up to that would be, again, whenever I talk with anyone, a lot of times what they tell me is that Bangladesh is always 5 years back, where it's to every other country. 5 years right now, something happens and Bangladesh 5 years later adopts it. So in terms of consumer analytics, do you see the adoption rate in Bangladesh?
I don't think so. And I wouldn't say in this field, Bangladesh is 5 years back. We're actually well behind. And it's mostly because we have a very weak foundation when it comes to data collection. So when it comes to ERP integration, digitizing even small businesses, we won't see them having digital ledgers. This is the biggest problem. We aren't, as a country, we're not able to invest in infrastructure yet. Obviously, some companies have, but in order to make that leap, this is something that we have to focus on.
So, Pam, you sort of grew up with this sort of business industry. Your families were here for decades, almost like 200 years, I think.
Yeah.
So do you see any changes, probably in the last 20 years, of what the definition of industry is?
That is a very
Open-ended question.
very open-ended question, very deep question actually. Yeah. I think in the last 20 years, what has happened in Bangladesh is there has been a lot of great companies that have adopted a lot of great structures. And I think all credit to them because I think they've understood what the best practices of the world is. Right now, there are still a lot of companies that haven't been able to make that leap. And I think it's mostly because there's always a resistance to change when it comes to working in Bangladesh. I notice this quite a lot actually. But the fact that local companies are accepting global standards is something that is dramatically happened in the past 20 years. And I think it's going to happen even more because our company wouldn't be able to survive if not.
So one of the questions that I had is, why do you think there is this sort of resistance to adopting new technology, especially our industries?
Yeah, I mean, I am also technically a Gen Z. Yeah, I think our generation is very different because we want change and we want technology. We want to adopt the best. But I think what plays in the mind of a lot of people who have been working in Bangladesh is that they've been very used to a system that has helped them over the years. And when you tell them to go beyond that, first of all, they get scared because they think that if they can't do that change, maybe their job will be lost. And secondly, they don't want to make that changes because they don't have that literacy, and we definitely have to train them. But yeah, those would be the two big things.
So could you give us sort of some examples of how Anwar adopted this sort of technology to stay ahead of everyone?
Yeah, I think one of the first things is, like, since I am a next generation, I bring in a lot of new ideas, as well as my brother. He has a background in CSE, which very much helps us. One of the first things that we did is we started communicating with everyone that in order to transform our business, we need to transform our infrastructure. So just talking to them and getting feedback from them and getting them aligned in the same vision is probably the most important thing, because you can't change something without having everyone on board. I can't just come tomorrow and be like, hey, I'm our group, like, adopt this technology. That's not going to happen. There are a lot of stakeholders that care a lot about the business. They have to feel like they own that change as well. And I think that's what has allowed us to transform a lot, I guess.
So how do you communicate with those ideas with people who are usually resistant to changes, right? Because that's a very tough conversation to have.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes it very much helps us when there is an example in the market. And a lot of times there's actually no example in the market that we can refer to. But for example, there is. We tell people that this is the best in the industry. We use them as an example. And then we take all the steps required to prepare for that change. And there can be many phases. Like, for example, we implemented a new technology in our company. And I can't tell you how much time we spent on training people. I have trained people personally. I've done multiple trainings. My brother has done multiple trainings. My father has done multiple trainings. But we like this because when people see that we are also concerned about this transformation, it's like a top-down approach. And it allows you to accept that change much easier. As opposed to a lot of companies, or maybe some companies, what they do is they adopt something new and then they just push it down people. But no, it's like a lot more to that.
So you just said that you guys do a lot of R&D.
Yeah.
Now, do you see any sort of partnership between these large conglomerates and sort of sharing this R&D? Because Japan needs to do this. Do you see that happening in Bangladesh? Is there any hope, or do
I mean, yeah, I would love to. I think one thing that I personally always encouraged, and it's something I look for actually, is university partnerships. Students out there, if you're listening, like, very much open to hearing your ideas actually. And a lot of students have actually approached me and like shared their ideas, which I very much appreciate. But we need to find a modality where industry and university have a very nice way of collaborating. And the reason why our format doesn't work right now is because if we think too much in the short term, if we're only doing this for a university project, the students aren't invested in this. And then they don't really think about scaling this or really committing hours to this. They only think about their grade. So professors out there, if you're listening, like if you want to do a long-term collaboration, we need to figure out what works well for both of us.
So I think after this episode, your DMs are going to be flooded.
I hope so. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So many people think of startups and conglomerates as two different, separate worlds.
Yeah.
So how do you see these two sides working together?
Yeah, that's also a very interesting question. I'll give you some examples, and I hate to go on a very big tangent. There are a lot of companies in Europe which is actually doing this. They're forming partnerships with universities, and they're creating like innovation labs. And basically the industry goes to a university and they're like, these are the problems that I have, come up with solutions. So that's a very good format that can work. But there are some challenges, like IP is very important to a company like us. So for people who want to do a startup, like I think doing homework is very important. Finding people in the industry that knows the problems is where you start first. So I can tell you for sure, every single industry in Bangladesh has so much potential for innovation, where students like, the viewers that you have can completely change everything. I want to go on this. Like I met someone that just sells like phones, right? Or gadgets or technology devices. Like you would think this is a very saturated market, right? And in a lot of ways it is. But the students or people who are very technology oriented, they have to think, what are the legacy players not doing that I can do? So what this, I would say kid, he's very young. What he did was he made a Facebook page. He ran digital ads. He had a website. The entire customer process is so easy. And that's how he was able to be profitable, even though he didn't have retail shops and anything like that.
Oh, that's very interesting. And I do see a lot of startups sort of competing a lot of these legacy practices.
Yeah.
But follow up to that would be, what can legacy companies, or more specifically, what can Anwar Group do to sort of build the next generation of startups? What is sort of your vision?
I think one of the thing is, I have to think a lot about that actually.
Because the reason I'm asking you this is there are a lot of startups in Bangladesh. A lot of times the funding that they get is foreign.
The more you educate them about what the prospects are, the more focused you are about the company's financials, I think you can encourage them. And I think to start small and then scale up is much better than asking for a large ticket at the beginning. Like, if you ask for $1 million from me today without having any sales, like it's going to be hard for me to invest.
So you guys employ a lot of people. Could you tell us the exact number, top of your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So we employ 14,000 people from 7 different industries.
All right. So again, the reason I'm asking you this is because when you have 14,000 people, the level of bureaucracy that exists, especially in middle management, it's brutal. How do you navigate those, or how do you encourage people to navigate the bureaucracy that exists in Bangladesh?
You're asking all the right questions, I see. Yeah, it's a very, very difficult process because, especially since we're such an old company, there have been practices that have been there for a very long time. And I can't change these things overnight, but these things can be changed gradually. But of course, the first thing that you have to start is with a top-down vision for creating a very lean enterprise. And when you have a lean enterprise, you have a very robust enterprise with limited bureaucracy. So small changes have incremental results. So make small wins, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a big one.
Okay, so follow up to that is when you go into a new industry or a new market, how do you evaluate it? That decision process.
So first of all, we always see how mature the industry is. If it's a very new industry, that's a more attractive industry for us. Secondly, we look at what the total investment size is. If it's a very high capex, obviously there are some projects that are very attractive, but the lower investment, higher the returns, that's kind of where we look at. Yeah.
See, so out of the 4 INEs we use, which one is your favorite?
I think I will be exposed for this later as well, but it's A1 Polymer. It's the first company that I joined when I joined Anwar Group, and it's a company I'm very proud of.
So what do they do specifically?
So we are in the business of selling pipes. We sell polymers. We sell bathroom fittings. We're going into tank production. We sell pumps, and we're very much diversified. And in terms of all our businesses, it's the business with the most SKUs.
See, so when you go to these different sort of verticals, what are the challenges? What are the opportunities that you see? Or how do you navigate those challenges?
So there are opportunities. First of all, there's a huge benefit that I get from working in different industries at the same time. If I learn something from A1, I'm going to try to implement it in Anwar Ispat or Anwar Cement. So that's one good thing. But the challenge is that we have to make a very clear distinction about industry nature. The polymer industry is very different than the cement or ispat industry or steel industry, and even the trade channels and everything like that are very different.
Yeah, so there are a lot of synergies. How do you take the best people, or how do you pick the best people for a new SBU? Like, what's the process? Do you pick it from different organizations, or do you start okay, who's the expert?
I mean, it kind of depends on what we want to do and what stage of the company we are at. I guess if there is no internal talent, we would try to source the best people in the industry and have the best practices. And when I come to hire someone, I always think how system driven someone is. And I think whenever you create a business, you always have to think about sustainability. If someone speaks very well, he's very charismatic, but he doesn't know the systems and processes, that wouldn't be someone I would want to hire.
I see. So they do have to know the technical knowledge.
They have to know the technical knowledge. They have to be able to know how to run very large teams. And the only way you learn large teams is by understanding systems.
So I think I watched one of your interviews, and you're a big champion of human capital. You're a big fan of it. Could you tell us where does that philosophy come from?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story actually. When I was in undergrad in Boston, I was reading this book called Work Rules by Laszlo Bock. And this is Google's HR head. And one thing that he wrote in the book that changed my life actually is that he wrote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And when I tell you this right now, you're going to be like, what does this guy even mean? But what it really means is if you have a strong culture, the people work for you. And it's not like you have to force them. And I think in an organization like Anwar Group, our culture is very important. And culture is established through many ways, like training people, like you said, human capital. That's one of the things that we spend a lot of our time doing. And this is something I also mentioned to you earlier.
Yeah. No. How do you encourage this strong culture? One is training.
Yeah.
What are the other things? Do you think it's a top-down approach?
Yeah. I think the first thing is that we have to have a very strong mission and vision. Our vision is to be the pioneer in industries and leaders of development. And this has been our vision for a very long time. So when I communicate with my employees, I always tell them that we are in this business to be the innovators of Bangladesh. We are here to do something that is very substantial for the country. And that overall vision is very compelling to some. Even for me, it's very compelling. And it's something that I will dedicate my life doing,
So, hey, you sort of have been in both parts of the world. In terms of global competitiveness, right? How do you see our local industries performing? Where do you see we can do better, right? Especially in this Southeast Asia region.
That's a very interesting question. I think one thing that you talked about earlier is there is a lot of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is something that we just can't have. And the reason why I say it's so important is I'll give you an example. If you focus all your time on figuring out how to reduce cost on like 1, 2, 3 items, you're never going to think about reducing the cost of 100 items. So bureaucracy is basically when you focus on those 1, 2 items instead of focusing on the 100. When you get too involved, you also don't allow people to have the freedom to actually be innovative with their ideas. So that's where we lie.
So again, another point I would add to that is we have an extremely young population, right? This is our time to be competitive. But what usually happens is everybody wants to leave this country as fast as possible. So in terms of developing that human capital, how do you keep people, how do you keep the talents in Bangladesh?
Yeah, so it's a lot of things. And I think culture plays a big role. Like, I don't think, at least the people that I work with in my organization, I wouldn't want them to work in my company if they don't truly believe in my vision, truly believe in the organization's vision. I tell my employees every time I meet them that we're doing this for this country. We really want to help this country. And this is also why I came back to Bangladesh. But for a lot of people, like, you know, it's very hard to understand that. And I completely understand that as well. Like, you know, people want to have a better life, but I also want to help this country. So a lot of people have the same vision as me, and I love working with them.
So we do a lot of manufacturing. We do textile. I'm sure you are aware. We haven't really seen any global brands from Bangladesh. A lot of times we are just siloed ourselves into manufacturing, right? If you look at companies like China has, what's it called? The one that does consumer fashion, the one that's super popular. When we have global brands from China like Shein.
Shein is a good example because they're technology first company. For viewers out there that don't know about their background, their founder actually just focused on one thing, and that is basically collecting SEO data. So what did he do with this SEO data? He basically understood what the trends in fashion were at a very fast rate. And then he used that data to create fast fashion. And also he has a very interesting way he communicates with his manufacturers. So that's a level of innovation that was very revolutionary. And now your question is, why doesn't it happen in Bangladesh? I would say it's happening. And it's happening. I want to give 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗲 as a very good example. They're exporting to a lot of countries in the world, and they're really represented Bangladesh in a good way. And I think a lot of companies are looking at 𝗪𝗲 and thinking, you know, we also want to get there. We definitely also want to get there. Inshallah, we will get there. And I think it's happening, but it's going to take a bit more time.
So follow-up to that is in terms of competition. Historically, a lot of foreign brands have dominated the Malaysian market, especially in terms of consumer products. How can local companies outcompete the foreign brands?
In the local market?
In the local market.
Can you give me some examples?
So some example would be 𝗬𝗎𝗎, right? These are MNCs who come into Bangladesh, and we have substitutes of those products. Yet people still prefer to buy companies' products from 𝗬𝗎𝗎.
Yeah, so I think in Dhaka, how people think is very different than the rest of Bangladesh. I think local companies are able to manufacture goods at a much lower cost. And like, I don't know the data, I might be mistaken, but I think local brands right now are very popular in Bangladesh. An example of that is 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, like, ওরা কি করলো, ওরা পুরো disrupt করে ফেলছে পুরো industry-টাকে, and that's very good. It's a local brand.
Will we see more of those in the future?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a trend globally, not only in Bangladesh. And I can give you an example of that. India, what the Reliance company is doing, Mukesh Ambani, he is basically creating alternatives to what the international brands have established. So recently, his daughter actually started a fashion brand, which is, again, look at this, technology first. they are competing against Zara and H&M, and they are really causing vibration to the Indian market. And you know what's great about India? India people, like, they prefer Indian brands. And I think that's going to happen in Bangladesh as well. I think people are going to start preferring local brands as well.
How do you encourage that?
Uh,
Because this is the point I would disagree with you.
yeah.
I think Bangladesh just likes foreign brand for some reason.
Yeah.
Right? Historically. How do you encourage to adopt local brands?
I think it starts with the manufacturer. Like, if the manufacturer doesn't give good products, people will have a misconception. There are definitely brands that are just taking shortcuts, and this is why the Bangladesh people have a bad taste. But you know, the reason why Anwar Group is the oldest company in Bangladesh right now is because we only focus on quality. It's like something that we will never compromise with. And it's like, you know, someone's grandfather used Anwar. His dad used Anwar. He also used Anwar.
I see. And hopefully his kids will too.
Inshallah. You know, we have so many businesses like that where people have done business with us for 4 generations. Like, I hope it's going to be longer, or 3 generations. Like, his kids will eventually join as well.
So how do you see sustainability sort of shaping companies like Anwar Group? Or what are some of the ESG practices you guys have?
So, yeah, I mean, sustainability regarding the environment is a big deal for us, and we are investing regularly in sustainability. We have recently invested in solar. We are investing in recycling. We're also creating a product called Anwar Cement Sheet, which is a sustainable product and is also disrupting the Bangladesh market. And you might think, well, what is this product? It's basically an alternative to tin. And what tin basically is you have to change the product every 4 years. Cement sheet, it lasts like 50 years, but we tell people it's going to last 20 years, just to be a bit cautious. But not only are you reducing the material consumption, your global, your carbon footprint, but also you're reducing the temperature for the users using the product. So cement sheet reduces inside the house or the factory like up to 12 degrees. And this has a huge impact on Bangladeshi citizens because we have a big problem with heat in Bangladesh. We've seen heat waves decimate rural areas, people who can't afford electricity. And, we're very proud of our product because it's helping not only homeowners, but it's also helping the farming industry of Bangladesh. We are actively working on increasing the mortality of chickens, cows, just by the product that we sell. So that is very, very something to be very proud of. তোমরা যদি study করো what it takes to export এরকম food to like countries like Malaysia or like India or like Sri Lanka, যেগুলোর compliance requirements কম, all you need to do is research who are the top importers of like fish or something, then you just connect the supplier.
So, why can't we manufacture solar panels in Bangladesh?
Oh yeah, first of all, we don't have the supply chain. We don't have a lot of the things that are required, but also solar is a very technology intensive industry that requires a lot of investment in R&D, which Bangladesh is not at that level yet. Maybe China is or America is, but what we're seeing in the market right now is China is outcompeting Europe and America. So they really are. Yeah, even in cars, they're going to outcompete a lot of people. So you don't want to compete against China and something like this.
So which industries do you think Bangladesh should focus on? Or which manufacturing process should we focus on?
That's a very good question. So what's going on in the world right now is that people, specifically America, is becoming very anti-China. They want to reduce their dependency. And they're looking to countries like Bangladesh. The easiest way for us to fulfill that demand is to look for industries that require labor, which is a strength of Bangladesh. So, for example, any industry that requires assembly, that is something that we can do very well.
So, an advice to someone is who doesn't have any capital, what should he do, especially in the manufacturing space?
Yeah, we were just discussing this. So, First of all, if I were in that position, I would just go through the entire Bangladesh and try to understand what is being manufactured in Bangladesh. And the problem is like when a manufacturer is always like, you know, I don't have demand, no one wants to buy, I'm reducing prices. Their demand is not in Bangladesh. Their demand is in another country. And you know, if students like yourself do a bit more research on what the demands and requirements of outside nations are, you guys can be like a partner for these people that connect the supply, which is all in Bangladesh, to the demand, which is in like a country like America or like Europe.
Could we streamline that process? Is there any way we can streamline that process? I think currently there's a lot of bureaucratic pressure. You have to open an LC, you have to do this, you have to figure out, okay, who do I go to open an LC, right? There's like a lot of scams that happens.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. What can, again, I think this could be an advice to our governments on a policy level. What could they do?
Yeah, of course. Like, I think from a policy level, like, you know, there are a lot of changes that need to be made to like open these small businesses and, you know, make it more attractive for small businesses to export out of Bangladesh. But going into the export, going into the compliance and regulatory problems is like it's like a thing of its own. But the thing is, it's still possible. Like, people are still doing it. The thing is, like, you just have to really dive deep. And the biggest advice I can give is to ask people, like, ask for help. You know, I think people think there's no opportunity, but, you know, they say that because, you know, they don't know enough to say what the opportunities actually are. So my advice would be to find people in the industry that already do it and just learn from them.
Get a mentor.
Yeah, get a mentor. Get a mentor from the industry.
Yeah. So, in terms of technology, why do you think our government is so slow at adopting technology? I mean, they talk about technology all the time. Yeah. If we see the technology that they have adopted, it's like 20 years backwards.
Well, I can't speak for the government. I understand we have a very big focus on investing in technology. I think still we as business owners, as well as the entire technology community, need to do a better job educating the government about what is practical, what is not practical. I think a lot of challenges that we face that we see in the government side is that, you know, they try to invent something and they expect it to work. But if we could think more like a business, even from a government level, if we can start privatizing a lot of these huge investments that people are making, I'm sure the government and the people of Bangladesh would very much benefit.
Yeah, I hope the government does privatize. Let's see.
Like, for example, you know, if BCash wasn't there, someone would tell the government of Bangladesh, can you make a BCash for us? Turns out it won't work. You know, there are a lot of things like that that can be privatized and can be a sustainable business.
So, in terms of leadership and culture, you manage teams, like you manage workers on a factory level and then on an office level. So, a lot of diverse people, right? What's your biggest lesson in managing this sort of people?
Okay, the biggest thing about leadership is empathy. And I think it's very easy to like paint people in one color, but I think trying to understand people's perspective more is something that, you know, all leaders really need to do in order to be successful.
See, yes, we do need a lot more empathy in our countries.
Yeah, I agree. We do.
Yeah. So,
and you know, that actually allows you to be successful, because then, like we discussed earlier, like change is something that can't happen, like, because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah, so throughout this conversation, you give a very humble vibe. Where does that come from?
Well, thank you for asking that. I do appreciate that, because I think I'm very privileged in the sense that I've had really good role models around me. I'm very honored to have my grandfather, Anwar Ispat. He is someone who dedicated his life to bettering the people of this country. And I want to give an example because this is important to me. Like the way he defined success was by how many families that he impacted, how many jobs he created. He never cared about, obviously money is important, but in his dying, like in his last days, that is the last thing he thought about. And I think he is a really good example. And as well as my father, he is very patient with me. He teaches me, even though I get very excited about things because I'm young. He gives me the freedom to make mistakes, which I very much appreciate.
I do think we all need a role model like that in our life. So, if you could give one piece of advice to young Bangladeshi founders who wants to build the sort of next generation of business, what would that be?
Okay, you might think this might be a bit basic, but I think it's very important to have self-belief. I think people don't have self-belief right now. And I think, you need to take a lot of risks in order to be successful. I think you have to be very determined. I'm not going to talk about the technicalities of work, but if you have one quality, which is an extreme urgency to be successful, that will give you success. And, there are going to be a lot of roadblocks for young entrepreneurs in Bangladesh. But, to stay there and just to keep learning and to love what you do, that's what I would tell them, yeah.
All right, I think we can end that. Thank you so much, Kyle.
All right, thank you.